Let me welcome all of you to this second CHERN online briefing, or CHERN. My name is Ágota Révész. I'm a sinologist working for Helmholtz Center, Potsdam in Germany, and I'm also a coordinator for Working Group 4 of CHERN, where we focus on public diplomacy and knowledge production. I will be your moderator for today. So, what is CHERN? The full name is China in Europe Knowledge Network. It is a platform for knowledge exchange among academic and non-academic communities, focusing on, as the name implies, China's presence in Europe. It was set up with funding from COST, the European Cooperation in Science and Technology, which funds research and innovation networks within the European Union. CHERN is chaired by Nona de Graaf and co-chaired by Jeffrey Henderson. Our network currently boasts over 300 members spread over 5 working groups. Our working group, number 4, came up with the idea of CHERN online briefings to facilitate exchange among researchers, journalists, and policymakers. So we are talking about a new CHERN initiative. This event today is the second such briefing. My colleagues actively involved in the organization of this event are grant holder Alexandra Filius and science communication coordinator Helena Gledic. Both of them are also here with us today. So this is what we are. And in this initiative that we came up with, we identify, CHERN online briefings. We identify some important events in the context of China's presence in Europe with the aim to provide journalists, also policymakers, and maybe also other researchers with insights from researchers within our network. The idea is to keep these briefings very short. Basically, just to give you a first glimpse into a topic and then let you pursue the topic further on a one-on-one basis with the particular researcher, may you wish to do so. That's why after this opening, I will give you a brief introduction into the main topic. Then come the pitches by our 3 researchers, 5 minutes only each. Then we will have approximately 15 minutes for a questions and answers session. The meeting is now in the format of a webinar, as you might have noticed, and it is being recorded. But after the short presentations, we will invite all of you to join us in a Zoom meeting, in a regular Zoom meeting, where you can ask questions directly or use the chat function. That Q&A part of the event will not be recorded. And now, on to the topic of today, which is risks and opportunities in academic and research collaboration, and which is also the topic I am currently engaged in. So, we are talking about the golden era of academic collaboration between China and European Union, USA, starting from approximately the early 1990s to approximately 2018. As you're all aware of, I suppose, since then we see a rather strong geopolitical and geoeconomic confrontation between the United States and China. There we have seen the trade war. There was also the China Initiative, again launched in 2018. The EU also in 2018 published a white paper where China was also not just designated as a partner and a competitor, but also as a rival. So we also see a challenge in this rise of China, not just in geopolitical and geoeconomic sense, but also in the area of science and technology. And this is how we end up in a kind of decoupling, or what we call it today, rather in a de-risking process, also in academic and research collaboration. So these past few years have seen several guidelines from institutes, also from central agencies in the United States and also in the European Union. And China has come up with a new regulatory environment in the area of research collaboration. Most importantly, again, in the same year, 2018, China introduced measures for the management of scientific data. Now, the big question of today is to collaborate or not to collaborate. And of course, it's as all coins, a double-sided coin. So we do have opportunities. We have seen talent flow from China. The United States and the European Union both have profited from it. China has advanced infrastructure, just like my colleagues here keep saying, we need to go there because the facilities are so good. And in certain areas, research areas, China has actually more advanced technologies than we do. But at the same time, we also see the risks of potential dual use, because China does have the idea very openly, actually, of military civil fusion. We do have intellectual property issues. And of course, there is the fear of the loss of technological competitiveness. So what we are facing is a major rearrangement of academic and research collaboration with China. And our three speakers of today will try to find or introduce aspects for possible ways forward. Now, our first speaker for today is Lynn Sibert, who studied political sciences and social sciences in Germany, France, and Great Britain. She received her master's degree in sociology and technology studies at the Technical University of Berlin and completed a language study program in Taiwan. She's currently doing her PhD at the Department of Sociology at Technical University of Berlin. In her dissertation, she studies risk assessment and research security measures in international science cooperation, with a special focus on Sino-German research cooperation. From November this year, she will be conducting field research at Tongji University, Shanghai, funded by the German Academic Exchange Service, DKFZ. And your topic, Lynn, is challenges and conflicts in ensuring research security or Sino-German operations. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Ágota. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present my research today at this online briefing, and thank CHERN for the invitation for me as a young researcher to speak alongside two experts in the field of scientific cooperation with China. On this note, I'd like to start with a personal angle, which Ágota has already introduced. Researching scientific cooperation with China means not only grasping and understanding the current new challenges, but also engaging in cooperation in one's own work and thus experiencing the current dynamics changes up close. So from November this year, as Ágota has said, I will be going to China myself for field research, and my research stay will hence build on the framework conditions, the ongoing scholarship and exchange programs that were introduced and established in precisely this golden era that Ágota Révész explained at the beginning. And it's exactly these programs, these previous processes and structures that are undergoing massive paradigmatic changes, through which is not now this phenomenon as research security. Next slide, please. So the emerging phenomenon of research security that is currently in the process of broad implementation, while at the same time still reason for intense debate and uncertainty, raises central key questions for European science systems. It is about how de-risking cooperation with China is impacting science and research, where efforts to achieve openness have so far been the main focus. So what does the implementation of research security measures mean for the current and future organization of science cooperation with China? What does this mean for leading science organizations, most of which have built up collaborations with China over many years and continue to rely on them currently and possibly also in the future? So de-risking as a concept raises key questions about research cooperations with China in particular, but as I want to illustrate very briefly today, equally about the science system and scientific culture in general. Next slide, please. So empirically, my research focuses on the German context and Sino-German research cooperation. And current research security policies in Germany are framed by the new National Security Strategy and China Strategy. In both documents, the strategic role and relevance of science for the relations of China is emphasized, but at the same time, also a novel responsibility of science is mentioned. So instead of a top-down red lines approach, the design and implementation of de-risking is to be largely carried out by German scientific institutions themselves, that are in this way called upon as policy actors in a way. To date, science institutions and joint projects have already conducted comprehensive analysis and have developed policy recommendations, new guidelines, new manuals, and a large number of training courses for researchers, administrators, and the management level. And the recommended measures range from the expansions of internal compliance programs and the education on export control to raising awareness of systemic and structural differences in the respective science systems, like different publication structures and pressures, different funding systems, and so on. Next slide, please. And so these capacity building efforts, so to say, by and for scientific institutions have already meant that the challenges and changes associated with de-risking are not abstract and somewhat only macro level, but increasingly a tangible reality for researchers in their daily work. Issues that were previously only dealt with by departments like legal departments and security institutions are now increasingly becoming part of the tasks and competence profiles of researchers and science administrators. This includes, for example, requests for vetting of postgraduate applicants from China and requests to recognize and also report conspicuous irregularities in CVs. The current debates and prevailing uncertainties are mainly due to the fact that the intended de-risking and security measures go beyond purely legal requirements. So it is not only merely about following clear guidelines. This is particularly apparent with regard to established concept of dual use and related concepts of technology readiness levels and basic research. So dual use, as many of you may know, refers to the twofold applicability of research for both military and civilian use. And the term not only covers final goods, but also knowledge, software, and technology. And the export of dual-use items is controlled for the protection of national security and to prevent the proliferation of mass destruction weapons or military equipment. However, applying the dual-use concept as a clear orientation for deciding whether to cooperate or not, in which areas to cooperate, in what form to cooperate, is in no way guaranteed. Not everything that is currently legally permitted and covered by the clear legal requirements makes sense in terms of the endeavors of the de-risking concept. So what could be used for military purposes in the medium to long term, but is not yet on any officially recognized dual-use list, especially in the case of emerging technologies, or what knowledge is of strategic interest in the medium to long term would require an assessment by and with the help of scientists that goes beyond current dual-use lists. Similar gray zone problems and rather the need for complex assessment on a case-to-case basis are also evident when it comes to the technology readiness level, which is firmly established as a concept, for example, in the framework of Horizon, for the evaluation of research projects. The technology readiness level is a scale for assessing the development status of new technologies and science from basic research to technological prototype development and in the end market application. The scale is therefore an important instrument for identifying the limits of basic research for which exemptions of control measures exist. So TRL level 1 covers what is also known as basic research, while levels 2 to 4 covers the transitional area between basic research and first applications. So similar to dual use, there are currently discussions to whether TRR levels are still appropriate and even helpful in view of the comprehensive security requirements in the context of the de-risking concept. Precisely because de-risking and research security also encompass strategic dimensions of economic security, in addition to classic export control objectives of national security, the long dominant science policy concept of basic research is therefore also being challenged. So our researchers, institutions are expected to manage risk and rethink, rearrange their collaborations. Core questions and ambiguities are emerging, which will ultimately affect not only relations with China, but presumably, and this is why scientists and journalists should observe really closely, also other international partners as well. So that's for my research today, and I'm looking forward to the next speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lynn. You were slightly over time, but it's absolutely okay. So thank you so much. It was very, very, very succinct and beautiful summary. Okay, our next speaker for today is Andrea Braun Střelcová. Very nice to have you here, Andrea. She studies the dynamics of international research collaboration with Chinese actors through the lens of EU research policy, European universities' organizational practices, science diplomacy, and academic mobility. She works as a predoctoral scholar at the Lise Meitner China in the Global System of Science research group at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin. She's currently writing her PhD in higher education management at the Tampere University in Finland, and as a senior expert for the European Commission's DG Research and Innovation, she is in active dialogue with policymakers across the EU. So the topic for today that we are going to hear about from Andrea is the talent funding, especially the 1,000 Talents program. The floor is yours, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Ágota. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Great. So in my contribution, I was asked to talk about one aspect, which I think is a key aspect of Chinese science policy, which are the talent plans or talent programs, and highlight their link with Europe's academic collaboration with China. So what I'm going to do is to demystify those talent plans a little bit by just briefly outlining what they are, a constant adaptive regime at the borderline of China's science and tech policy and migration governance. Next slide, please. So the talent programs is a series of initiatives going back to the mid-1990s that centers around people. Trained and working mainly in the West, scientists, innovators, entrepreneurs, but also athletes and artists, but in this presentation I stick to science, to entice them to come to China as so-called talents, and by doing so help China reverse the brain drain that the country was suffering from and make them contribute to the country's transformation. This policy has been mostly targeting Chinese returnees residing in the US, but to some extent, minor extent, also foreign scholars, including Europeans, mostly, almost solely, in natural sciences. The most famous, or maybe infamous, of those plans was the 1,000 Talent Plan, running for a decade from 2008, which discontinued and was erased from the Chinese internet after attracting significant criticism from the US in the Trump era on the ground of alleged economic espionage and technology transfer in the much publicized China initiative, although, important to say, the vast majority of those accusations of people have never been proven. Regardless of the 1,000 Talents Plan, the talent plans are still there, alive and kicking. TTP rebranded and mostly morphed into other newer initiatives that keep influencing networks, migration, mobility, and collaboration. And this is important for us because China now places even more emphasis on working with Europe and engaging Europe, shifted away from working with the US. Next. So the talent programs usually entail a job offer at a university or a research institute, research funding, up to 700,000 euros for 3 to 5 years. That's by itself standard, not that much, but it varies, and it can in total stick up to much more than that. It also allows for a personal kind of a pocket money, tax-free sum of money going to people's personal bank accounts, and subsidized housing, access to healthcare, medical insurance, access to schools, spouses, employment opportunities. There are also significant perks at work, administrative support, students, research assistants, access to state-of-the-art facilities and lab equipment, and also entry, visa-free entry, residency, so-called green card. I think these days it's called the 5-star card. Overall, it creates a good package, flexibility. In fact, the more famous and leading the talent is in their field of science, the less time they are required to spend in China, which was an issue in the past because some of these people were not disclosing their annual trips to China and the money that they earned there, which is also why today some institutions and funders in the West ban participation to their people on the talent plans. Next. There is a constantly evolving landscape of national and subnational talent plans at the provincial, national, city, even a district level all over China. So we don't know, or I don't know the details, but probably around 8 to 9 national talent plans and more than 200 local plans. This is all embedded in a global talent competition. This is very important to know that China is definitely not alone to attract the highly skilled and trying to draw from their diaspora and beyond. In fact, China learns from others and adapts to the strategies and approaches of other countries. The national component there is such that the talent funding idea is really based on the selective recruitment of individuals based on their potential to transfer knowledge and contribute to China's technological development and international competitiveness. However, the idea can sometimes clash with the local reality. China is vast and very diverse, and each province, city, and university can have their own talent office and their own flavor to giving individualized offer to people. But the reality may not always run as smooth as the policy envisions, and the individual experiences of people funded by these talent plans can be very, very diverse. So just to wrap up, talent funding is a broad regime that focuses on people and their skill sets, which is why singling out a single program, such as what happened in 2018 with the 1,000 Talent Plan, is misleading, because the talent plans constantly evolve and morph into new programs which continue hiring people in very similar ways. However, the geopolitical rivalry has highlighted the question of how to account for scientists' embodied knowledge, their brains, their know-how in the current geopolitical era, where the EU approaches cooperation more through the lens of research security. The talent funding aims to attract people which are at the forefront. And these are the fields which not just China, but also the EU deems critical, such as for their economic sovereignty and competitiveness, such as semiconductors, AI, biotechnology, autonomous vehicles. And this is what highlights the salience of the talent funding policy also for us, and highlights the importance of understanding it. Thank you so much for inviting me, Ágota, and the floor is on you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. This is fantastic. And I'm so happy to introduce our next speaker, who will take this topic one step further. Marcus Conlé is coming up with a topic on research security in key technology sectors, actually. Marcus is an advisor for research security and export control at the German Cancer Research Center. He previously worked as a research fellow at the German electron synchrotron called DAISY, where he led the project WICOP Infra, which developed recommendations for conducting cooperation with China at large research infrastructures. Marcus is associated with the German Institute for Global and Area Studies, otherwise known GIGA, where he recently co-authored the Asia-Pacific Research Area Performance Monitoring Reports. He completed his studies in Germany and China, and has worked on China's regional and sectoral innovation systems for altogether more than 15 years. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Ágota, and good morning to everyone, including the ones that I can't see right now, but I hope to see you afterwards. So time is running, and Ágota can be mean on this, so let me start quickly. And I want to start by mentioning the Draghi report. The report just came out this Monday. It is on the future of European competitiveness. Now, this topic might look very distinct from what we talk about today, which is research security. However, China provides an obvious link between the two issues, between competitiveness on the one side and research security on the other. So I want to use my couple of minutes to draw your attention to this link from the perspective of science, and this mainly builds on the results of my previous project, WICOP Infra, that Ágota just mentioned. Next slide, please. So many researchers in the scientific community within the European Union understand that there are many benefits that comes from the cooperation with China. So during my times at DAISY, that is the German electron synchrotron, we have talked a lot about large scientific infrastructures that are currently being built in China. And where I'm right now at DKFZ, that is the German Cancer Research Center, it is the access to patients with different spectrum of diseases, especially rare diseases, that makes China an attractive partner. So there are benefits and risks, and those benefits and risks cannot be neatly separated. That's one of the main problem. If you take a look at the graph on the slide here, we are mostly talking about the space in or near the upper right quadrant. So that's where benefits are high, and so are the risks. I know there are a lot of hopes about identifying high benefit, low risk cooperation projects, for instance, in climate research, but this is mostly wishful thinking. There are always risks. This is because risks are so manifold, and they most importantly include possible future disadvantages for our lives here in the European Union. So our most common research security tools, such as export controls and ethical reviews, are geared towards immediate risk. For instance, cooperation on projects that are directly relevant to the military. And this is what they are supposed to do. However, most of the time in political discussions, we actually talk about competitiveness in the medium to long term. So here, the tools are not as helpful, and they actually should not be. So that's actually what they should do. So for science, the best way we can do here is to increase our competitiveness by grasping the benefits of international science cooperation, but protect our innovations. That is something that we have to split, the science and the innovations. And identifying proprietary laboratory knowledge is key to this. So it's about being there when open knowledge creation transitions into proprietary ideas and know-how. Next slide, please. So let me briefly say a few more words about risk. Key enabling technologies are important here. They include artificial intelligence, robotics, photonics, and so on and so forth. They're one of the main factors driving risk perceptions. That's why the EU Parliament and the Commission, among others, have focused on them. So on the slide, there is an exemplary figure from an EU Parliament publication. It's just an example. Key enabling technologies are highly relevant for modern science, and therefore many researchers spend considerable time and effort improving them, whatever scientific discipline they are actually in. At the same time, they are also relevant for establishing those future geopolitical power positions, for military modernization, for establishing economic monopolies, especially in the digital sphere. So this duality generates major confusion in the science community, because how should we do de-risking if everything could be somehow, somewhen relevant in geopolitical terms? Next slide, please. So the results of my previous project, WeCop Infra, indicate that the only way forward really is to prevent or at least reduce immediate ethical risks. This is what export controls and ethical reviews do. They are perfectly up to the task here. And otherwise, it is better to take de-risking not too far and spending resources on finding out what could be somehow useful for the Chinese side in some way future or so. You can reduce some risks, but you will not succeed in minimizing all risks. You will only contribute to halting cooperation altogether. So this road will ultimately lead to decoupling, and that is not where we want to go at the European Union. That's our conviction. Instead, we should rather focus on ourselves and on improving innovation and figuring out how international cooperation can benefit us in this endeavor. Well, this might sound simple, but it's actually not, and will take more resources, that I can say from my own experience as a scientific manager. So most of all, we need to do better at identifying proprietary lab knowledge at the right time. This will also help us in determining the knowledge that we need to protect against our competitors. In this way, so improving early stage innovation will also help us improve research security. So I will leave it at that. Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to the Q&As.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Super. Yes, thank you actually to all our speakers for the insights on risks and opportunities in academic and research collaboration. And let me remind our audience again that the idea was just to give you a brief insight into what researchers in our network work on. So if you want to pursue any topic further, please feel free to contact them directly through our website, where you can also find their bios. So feel free to do so. Okay? We also hope that some journalists might wish to develop one or more of these pitches into stories. And one more very important announcement. The topic, this particular topic, seems to be so hard and so much wished for that we will have a second event devoted to it. We have also received so many applications from people in our network that there is a second round coming up sometime in late October, early November. We will keep you posted. Now, to conclude the recorded part of this session, we now say goodbye to the audience who will be watching this recording at a later point in time, right? Because this recording will be published on our website. And with this, goodbye to all of you, our later audience.